Is this the most well-realized video game character who's ever been devised? Or is it just that I named her Maddy? Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week we open up the mailbag to answer questions about blank slate video game characters, party games, and whether or not we're really friends or we just host a podcast together. I'm Maddy Myers.
I'm Jason Schreier.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton, and hello.
Hello. It's us again.
Here we are.
How are you
back.
both doing today?
Doing pretty good.
Finally, just a regular episode of Triple Click. All three of us here again.
For now.
NBD.
It's wild.
No explanation required. Why wouldn't all
Imagine
three of us
that.
be here?
Until the craziness starts.
No, it's just going to be regular this week. It has to be regular. And just like any other week, I'm going to mention just off the cuff, like apropos of nothing at all, that we're part of the Maximum Fun network and that we really love it there, and that is a part of why we don't have any advertisements on our show, is because we're part of this network and because our listeners support us. And if you want to be like those cool listeners who support us, and why wouldn't you be? You'd go to MaximumFun.org/join and you would join the great club that all those listeners are in, and you would get monthly bonus episodes. This month we're about to record one called Triple Cook, where we talk about some of our favorite recipes and things that we like to make in our kitchens. And we also have a lot of other monthly bonus episodes that are about video games, but
right.
Not all of them
food.
are Triple Cook. I mean, it's not like we're just running a parallel podcast called Triple Cook that's just monthly and it's like a secret bonus feed. The other episodes are not that. But you'd have to join and find out what all of them are. And I would recommend doing that. So that's MaximumFun.org/join to go do that. And while I'm talking, I'm going to also say that all three of us are going to be at the same place at the same time in Los Angeles, California. And I'm really excited about that. But other people will be physically in that place as well on June 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the Terragram Ballroom in Los Angeles. We're going to have a Triple Click live show. And if you want to buy a ticket to that, it's in the show notes.
Yeah, you should come out. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be super fun. That's in like a week from
that's like
when we are airing
really
this episode.
Very soon.
That's pretty wild. That's bonkers stuff.
Yeah, buy a ticket.
I'm very excited.
Come check it out. And come see us talk about Summer Game Fest, which is also happening that weekend. But I would say the coolest thing that's happening that weekend is that we're all hanging out in person and we're doing a live show.
Yeah.
That's way
gonna
cool.
That's safe to say.
Yeah.
a lot of people around that we know.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
So what are we talking about this week, Jason?
This week we are talking about lots of things because we are answering listener questions in a segment that we like to call Burning Questions. A segment that dates back to 2012.
That's right.
That was the first one.
Concept
Is
of
that
burning
right?
questions. Yes.
Cool. Over 10 years old.
Yes.
This is an
Over
ancient
12
segment.
years.
Yeah.
12 years old.
That's right.
It was, at Kotaku, where we talked about Persona 4. Kirk and I did like a live blog, or like a text podcast, really, I would call it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I would say that, it was a text form of what you're listening to right now.
A text podcast.
It was the text proto triple click. And so, we have a bunch of questions that we've pulled out of the mailbag. And just as a reminder, you can always reach us at tripleclick@maximumfun.org with your own questions. Remember to keep them short and keep them weird and keep them interesting. And we might just read them on the show. All right, let's do this. First question, Kirk, why don't you start us off?
This question comes from OMG My Heart, who writes, why do you think there are so few pregnant NPCs in video games? It's a good question.
Yeah.
This is a funny one because when I saw this question, I think it was like in January, I was playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, an early copy, or it must have been February. And it was like, as I saw this question, literally the second I saw this question, there was a side quest where it was a pregnant woman like giving you a side quest as part of the game.
Right.
It's like, interesting. Good timing.
She might be the first ever. I feel like I agree with this questioner because I barely ever see it. And
No, sorry. this is disproven now because there was one pregnant
You're
NPC.
right. What am I saying? It's solved.
It doesn't count anymore. Sorry.
But even then, it wasn't like a background. It was like a character who that was like part of the story. It's interesting. I was thinking about this. I think the answer, and this is a little kind of messed up, but it speaks to storytelling kind of tropes and the way we perceive stories in general. I think the answer is that pregnancy calls your attention in a way that would make you think that there is like some grander story purpose to it, as opposed to just a generic background character. And in the same way, like you might not see someone who's disabled often as like an NPC, because you might think, oh, that person seems different than the other people. I should go talk to them because maybe they'll give me a quest.
Yeah,
right.
To their quest they're going to give me too.
Almost like they have an exclamation point on their head. And so it would be cool if that sort of stuff was more kind of normalized and we just saw that in the background the way we saw everything else. But I think the reason that you wouldn't see it a lot is because of that. The only other explanation I can think of is just that it's like you have to like do a character model and art assets for like a pregnant woman, which would be more of a pain for a background NPC or something than it's worth, as opposed to just kind of duplicating generic body models.
Yeah, but that's also why it's so cool when you have a character who does look physically different in some noticeable way, and it helps populate the world and make it seem more like the real world, where you just run into different people all the time, like whether it's a disabled character or a character who just is really short or really tall or just has a different body for whatever other type of reason. Like, why, I know it's much more difficult to create all those different models, but that's part of why it's so much more noticeable when a game actually does do that, because it makes the world feel real. I'll also say this question reminded me of Into the Spider-Verse 2, because there is a character in that Spider-Woman who, notably, she's pregnant in comics and still is like a superhero in the comics while having a very pregnant belly, and they included that in the movie. And I remember seeing that movie and thinking that was so cool. And I mean, it is kind of video game-like in that she's not the main character. She's like one of the many kind of side characters in that movie, and it's just like part of her life that she's just also pregnant while doing crime fighting. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. They're just like taking this from the comics and putting it in. And when I read this question, I thought of that right away and was like, there's no reason why a video game couldn't do that, especially with like a super powered character who's like fine to keep crime fighting and still protecting herself and her baby despite it all, because she has like absurdly powerful superhuman strength and all this other stuff.
Yeah, God, I feel like you kind of need absurdly powerful superhuman strength to be pregnant in the first place, like let alone to be crime fighting.
Yeah.
Having seen my wife go through this twice, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, no interest on my part. Thank you very much.
Right. One thing I will say, I mentioned Rebirth at the beginning. Rebirth is very good at having background NPCs that are a variety of sizes and shapes.
It's so
and
cool.
Colors and just
everything.
Human characteristics that you see in the real world. I think that game is really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
This makes me think of something only sort of related, but in terms of taking ordinary lady stuff and just putting it in a game and making it seem ordinary. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes has this fun little detail where you're walking around in the world as this lady. And if you open up her purse at the very beginning of the game, you have car keys and a tampon. And those two things are just in her purse.
Yep.
And Polygon actually ran a story about this.
Yeah, we did. I was going to say this if you didn't. We actually talked to the developer for this story. I don't know if you read all the way through. It's fine if you didn't, but I'll summarize it.
Yes, I read the whole article.
Well, thank you, Kirk.
I do read your
allow
website.
you to quote it from Polygon.com. Go right ahead.
Well, it's what was cool about it is just that their reason for putting it in there was just like, well, ladies carry tampons in their purse.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a thing.
A lot of them do.
And they, at least the article implies that there are no puzzles that are solved with the tampon, which I guess I'm taking their word for it on that because I haven't beaten the game.
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I just think that that's really fun. And just kind of a good example of taking something that just seems to me, as someone who plays a lot of video games, like, oh, that's really unusual, a tampon. You never see tampons in video games. And then, of course, my gamer brain starts thinking, well, that must be the solution to some puzzle. Like, you must use it at some point to solve some elaborate puzzle. And the fact that you don't is actually a really fun commentary from the developers. So just a little bit of a parallel thing that makes me think about.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is actually you get pregnant and then you throw out the tampon because
you don't need it anymore
for a long time.
Yeah, they really killed two birds with one stone in that game. No, we don't know if that happens. No spoilers for Lorelai. We have no idea if that happens.
All right, next question. Maddie, read this next one.
Sure. So this one is from Ryan, who writes, "Hi, Triple Click. I was wondering if you guys have any good party/group game suggestions. This could be anything from Overcooked, Jackbox, or even past the controller type games like The Quarry. Any game suggestions to pull out at a party with non-gamers is a plus."
So these have to be video games?
No, I don't think so. I think they can be tabletop games.
Yeah, these are video games. That's the
Fine.
the
Jason says
implication
yes.
here. Well, all of Ryan's examples are
No, it's
video
true.
games. So I
It's
think
true.
that's the implication. Jackbox is a good one for non-gamers, especially. Mario Party is kind of the old chestnut, and the newest one is actually really good. Mario Party had this real peak in the N64 era with the first 3 games, and then it just went like it just totally crashed, and it just could not find its footing for years and years and years, like kind of hitting its nadir with this version where like instead of having separate icons on the board, you were all in vehicles together. I think that was like the Wii version or the Wii U version or something. Anyway, it's returned to its former glory with the most recent one, Super Mario Party on the Switch, and so that has become my go-to, like friends are over, we're gonna play something together game. Although you're limited to 4 people, so if you have more than 4, Jackbox is generally a good choice.
Yeah. Mine is probably going to be Just Dance, which I think I made a One More Thing ages ago. During COVID, I remember I was just hanging out with Dina and her 2 roommates just pretty much every single day. And like we ended up booting up Just Dance, which is also a 4-player game, and had a lot of fun just kind of gently mocking each other's dancing abilities, learning the choreographed dances together. I mean, it's an oldie but a goodie. I mean, there's a reason why some of these games have like reiterations every couple years, or in the case of Just Dance, every year. It's because they're fun and they're really popular for a reason. So it's like, oh, Mario Party, I've heard that name before. Jackbox, I've heard that name before. Like those games are still really, really fun to just play with 3 other people.
And the Jackbox games, they're different every
That's
year.
right.
So it's
Yeah.
like you're getting, when you say Jackbox, you're talking
Right.
about like
It's a huge-
potentially dozens of games themselves. Kirk, are all your suggestions board games? Is that
It's
what you asked
acceptable if
before?
they are.
No. I can definitely come up with a few video games as well. Those are all great examples. Ryan's example of Overcooked is really fun. Any of those games like Quap, or those kind of fumble core games. Octodad is a good one where one person is playing but everyone is kind of watching. That can be fun depending on the group. And a game that I always recommend to people is a game called Space Team, which was originally a phone game that you play with, I think it's 2 to 8 people, and you each have the game open on your phone, and then your phones all talk to one another. And you have like a variety of buttons that you have on your phone, and everyone's phone is different. The idea is that you are the crew of something like the Starship Enterprise, and you're trying to like escape a warp jump. You're kind of in the middle of some anomaly, and as the ship is starting to come apart and everything is going wrong, you need to adjust things. So you'll have to call out a prompt that comes up on your phone that somebody else is going to be able to enter on their phone. So you can't do everything yourself. So you'll have to yell like, turn the Garf Blaster to 4. And whoever has the Garf Blaster will have to be like, oh wait, that's me, and do it before the timer runs out. And if you mess up enough, the ship falls apart. The issues that I've run into with that game in the past are just that the phones can come desynced from one another. There can be some kind of funkiness depending on your Wi-Fi or where you're playing. And I see here that they have made a card version of Space Team, a card game version, that I would actually think would probably be just as fun, because you probably just play with a timer and kind of play in the same way. But I could see that actually working a little bit better. Plus, you could take it with you somewhere where you're not all on the Wi-Fi and play it. So either one of those versions is probably fine. But I really like Space Team. It's a great icebreaker and a really fun party game.
If there's one thing I miss from the days of COVID, it's that you kind of had a built-in excuse to be like, hey, friends, let's all play Jackbox or Among Us. And now that feels less common.
Yeah, whoever was in your bubble or whatever, or I guess larger friends group if it's a virtual.
Well, I'm talking about over Zoom. Like now, I feel like people don't play games over Zoom anymore. And so they have less frequent gaming events with friends because we're not all just stuck at home with nothing else to do every Friday night or whatever.
Well, and we played so many games over Zoom, and we all grew so allergic to Zoom as well. It was
Right,
like we
that's
really
true.
loved cheese, and then we ate nothing but cheese.
That's true. It's a little too much cheese. We all got our arteries were clogged. Our blood pressure's a little too high now.
Yeah.
All right, here's a question from Jeff. Jeff says, "Hi, when do you get emotionally invested when the game gives you blank slate characters? For example, in XCOM, you can customize your various characters to your heart's desire, but there's basically zero arc or character development for any of them. Yet I'm very invested in those characters, particularly as the game goes on and I play more and more missions with each. What do you think creates this connection?"
So I'm going to quibble with Jeff here that there's no character arc, because I feel the same way. I get really attached to my XCOM
Same.
characters. And to explain to people who haven't played this game, in XCOM, you create a squad of soldiers who go and fight aliens, and you come up with the names for them. In XCOM 2, you can come up with their backstories, their countries of origin, their voice. You can customize each one. And while they are all kind of generic, like they're not your one player character, they are nameless and somewhat procedurally generated. Then you send them out into the field and they can die permanently in that game. So you become very invested in them and watching them level up and get more powerful. And then when they die, you feel this great sense of loss. I think it's like a huge part of the appeal of that game. But the character arc is what forges the connection in XCOM. I mean, for me, I remember I think I named all of my characters after my friends.
Yes.
So like I remember Luke Plunkett was the sort of hard charging, shotgun wielding guy in my party, and my friend Sarah was our sniper. And as a result, so I kind of already had these connections because I was using my friends' names.
I have done
but
this
then
too. Yeah.
Sarah like became this amazing character to me. I mean, she came through in the clutch in this can't win scenario where she just like aced 4 aliens in a row with these perfect critical shots, and she became this total hero. Like I thought of her as, you know, she started as a recruit and she got better, and then she had this incredible moment under fire where she took an injury and then was out for a while, and when she came back, she was so valuable to have on the team. And then she finally got killed on a really wild, super difficult mission, and I felt this real sense of loss. Oh man, there's this character Sarah, who both is my friend and also this character that I've watched develop and grow and have all these moments that I've shared with her. So I think that the arcs are actually a big part of what makes that connection work in XCOM.
Well, I think when Jeff talks about story arc, he's talking about like a written story arc. You're talking about something that is kind of like
But is that
emergently
arguably more
generated.
powerful, right?
Yeah.
No.
The story
I know,
that you
but
tell yourself.
Yes, I know. But I'm saying, I think he's just using story arc to mean a very specific thing that you're kind of you're talking about a different kind of story arc.
I'm suggesting, I think, an expansion of what a story arc can be, because they really are both story arcs.
Right. Well, but you also just answered his question, which is that like the reason that we connected these characters is twofold, and you kind of answered it in 2 ways. One is that you name them, and whenever you name something, it gives it power. Like when you name a pet, or you name that bird who's hanging outside your window, and then you get sad when they go away because you're like, oh, I miss you, PD parrot. Do parrots hang out outside people's windows?
Yeah,
Sure.
somewhere in the world they do. Sure.
And the other is that kind of that growth from like a little weakling who's procedurally generated to like your most powerful characters taking out 4 dudes at once in clutch style. That's the arc that you grow connected to them along the way, even if they don't have like writing and written personality.
Yeah, and I feel like in a game like Helldivers 2, where they're trying to not ever have you feel that sense of connection and instead emphasize the facelessness of your characters, it can be equally effective. And like that game plays it for comedy every time. And we talked about how that works a lot as compared to something like XCOM, where you really want to keep your characters alive. You name each and every one of them. I know it's like a different perspective, because you're not like doing a first person game as you are in Helldivers 2, where like you're repeating the action each time. In XCOM, you're managing your entire squad. But nonetheless, I felt like that was really striking for me in Helldivers 2, the fact that I didn't feel emotionally attached to my characters by design. Instead, the overarching story is of like super planet Earth, and like that's the story that you're following. Whereas I agree totally, like in XCOM, or even when I was a kid playing Oregon Trail, I used to name the characters in the wagon after my friends, and then when they got, you know, cholera or whatever, I'd be like, I have to save my friend, I need to rest the wagon. And like that would be what would partially motivate me to keep going, but it would also just be the PD the parrot effect, as I've decided to call it, where like you named something, so now you're attached to it, and therefore you're like, well, I'm rooting for this. And games can either encourage or discourage that based on design. And I think XCOM really encourages it in its design.
Maddy, the difference between you and me is that you name your characters after your friends, and then you get sad when they get sick, whereas I name my characters after my friends so they can get cholera, and I
you
can
be
laugh
like,
and say, send screenshots of them getting cholera to them.
Yeah, also fine.
I think this kind of cuts the other way as well, where you can have an NPC or a character that you don't really like that then grows on you because their gameplay narrative sort of forges a connection with you. Like you start out thinking, this guy's kind of annoying, but then you kind of watch him go through some stuff and he really comes through for you a few times, and you start to be like, all right, I kind of like him, And then whatever, 12 to 17 hours later, you're like attached to him when he finally sacrifices himself at the end or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a story concept in screenwriting and in storytelling in general that like one of the ways that you can get an audience to connect to a character is by making him or her or them really, really good at their job. And I think games are the same way. If someone is like really proficient for you, you're always going to find something charming about them. You're always going to find some connection to them, even if they don't have a personality or even if they have an unlikable personality.
And by the same token, if they're constantly letting you down, then that's going to elicit an emotional reaction too that can be just as effective, where you're like, oh, what's up with this? Like, oh,
yeah,
and then
I
when
love
they
this
betray
character,
you,
but he
you're
sucks
like,
in
oh,
combat.
Yeah, or that, yeah.
That's very true. Or like, I don't know, the characters in Resident Evil or in Dead Rising where you have to escort somebody and they keep getting you killed or they keep causing you to fail the mission. I think a lot of times when people hate characters in games like that, it isn't really even the writing of the character. It's just the design of the missions that they're alongside you on.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more thing I'll say real quick is that I interviewed Jake Solomon, who is the director of those XCOM games, a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me about his new game, which he started a new studio to work on, which is him taking that concept of emergent narrative of these characters that you fall in love with over the course of the game and bringing that to a life sim game, like a Sims type of game. And he had some really interesting ideas. We were talking a little bit about kind of like how without combat, you kind of have to find other ways to have these characters grow and create systems out of them. And I'll link the article in the show notes because it's an interesting Q&A I had with him, but he's got some really smart ideas, I think, about like the ways in which it's all set in a small town and there's going to be dramatic events that happen and you have to figure out how to navigate them with these procedurally generated characters. It should be really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Who's up? Kirk, you're up.
Oh, I am up. This next question comes from Eric, who is a Max Fun donor and has loved the show since Split Screen. Thanks, Eric. Eric writes, you all seem like good friends, but you also operate together in a professional capacity, being the Triple Click podcast. What is it like to be professional friends? Can it get awkward? What do you do when someone segues to... What do you do when someone segues to the break before one more thing, but you still have something that you want to say?
The truth is that we all hate each other.
Yeah,
the three of us just are.
Yes, the word "seem" here.
Yeah,
we don't
seem
talk
like good friends.
except we're kind of like the Beatles. We do not talk except for when we're podcasting together.
Yeah. I guess I feel like it's never gotten awkward. This would be a weird moment for me to find out that the two of you think it has, but I don't think it is awkward. I guess because we were coworkers first and then became friends. So we already were working together and then we just became friends. And then at a certain point, you two asked me if I wanted to permanently be on your podcast, which in and of itself is potentially awkward because you two already had a podcast. And then I became part of it. And now I'm a third of it. And so that, I don't know, I think is just an amazing thing.
Yeah,
that
I mean, Maddy, I had one kid and then I had a second kid.
That's right.
It seemed like it might be awkward, but it was actually a natural fit. So.
No, it wasn't, because you kept it a secret for a while. That was potentially awkward.
That's besides the point. But,
yeah, I don't feel like that part's
things
awkward.
Just fit well.
Maybe it's also just that we have also had pretty good boundaries. Like when we were setting up Triple Click after Split Screen, we were like our own business, and Kirk was really the responsible one there because he already had his own podcast that was a business, and he was like, here's some ground rules that we should lay out in case any of us ever wanted to quit the show. Like behind the scenes, we have some language for that, and hopefully it'll never happen and we'll be doing this till the day we die. But, you know, we set up some ground rules for that and signed a contract together. But because we had already all been working together at Kotaku before, I feel like that was pretty normalized. But what do we do when somebody segues to the break before one more thing and one of us wants to keep talking? What do we do, Kirk?
I don't know if that happens very often. Usually it's a pretty natural stop point.
Every now and then.
Something that's worth noting about what we do that I'm not sure if people quite internalize is that like our kind of professional and personal relationship is, well, our personal relationship is pretty good. I think the three of us are good friends, but our professional relationship is not really one where... Let me rephrase this. So I think that when personal relationships and professional relationships get dicey, a lot of times there's some kind of common issues. It might be a fight over money. It might be a fight over who's pulling their weight in a business. It might be a fight over like those things of those nature, which don't really come up very often among the three of us. And when they do, I think we're pretty good at talking about it and resolving it pretty quickly. But from the get-go, we divvied our load and our workload and made it pretty clear what we were all going to do. And we have kind of regular check-in meetings just to make sure that none of us are feeling too overwhelmed. And so I think just because of the nature of this, like if we were running a media business and it was full time for all of us, that might feel a little bit different and a little more challenging. But with the podcast, it's I think pretty manageable. And I think the three of us have gotten pretty good at handling that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just second what both of you said. Maddy, I think that's true that we were colleagues first and then grew to become friends, and that is an important trajectory because friends who then start working together can discover all sorts of new tensions or wrinkles.
And be like, oh, working with this person sucks, as it turns out. Like sometimes you don't know that when you're friends with someone.
Right.
Which is tough.
Where if you already kind of know how to just communicate professionally and ask for things and just have that kind of relationship with someone, it's a lot easier to just fit a friendship into that rather than going the other way around. And yeah, Jason, I think it's true that a big thing in our show's favor is that this isn't any of our main thing, both for our like creative focus and also or professional focus and also for our income. I think if this were a big, like really big company, like we were a podcast that was a full-time thing with like offshoot shows and we had a staff and we're hiring all these people and really had to manage a lot of ins and outs. Like a staff makes everything more stressful. Like once you're employing people, a lot of people are relying on you. Money becomes much more important. There are all these pressures that then can really just become more difficult to work with. And it's not that I think we wouldn't do well. I think we would. It would just require more constant check-ins. It would require more talking things out. As it is, our show is very simple and straightforward. Like you said, Maddy, we do have like, I think really good sort of partnership paperwork that we all worked out with lawyers. So that stuff is all in place. And now we can just kind of relax and make the show that we like making, which I think is a great way to make something.
It is. I agree.
Especially when you're already doing a lot of other things, which all three of us are.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Some of the looking in the industry that I cover, some of us cover, two of us cover the video game industry. I think some of the most successful creative partnerships and also some of the least successful have been like people who aren't close friends, but are just kind of like business partners or creative partners. And I think that a lot of times if something is your full time, like I'm spending 40 plus hours a week on this thing, it can be a lot tougher to be close friends with your business partners as opposed to a side thing. So yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, let's move on. Unless I'm segueing before the two of you have something to say. Now I'm going to be constantly self-conscious about that.
It's an interesting thing that I could talk about more, but let's keep it moving.
Maddy, this one is for you.
All right, this is from Will, who says, "Hi, Triple Click. Question for the show. Are there any genres or games you enjoyed growing up that you no longer enjoy? For example, I loved open world games growing up, but I don't like them nearly as much as I've gotten older." Right off the top, Will, I wonder if that's time related, because that was one of the main things that came to mind when I read this question was like, well, I have a very different relationship with time as an adult than I did as a child. And we've talked about that on the show a lot. But Jason, go ahead.
I talked about this a little bit the other day, but I think that what people today might not realize, especially younger folks, is that one of the reasons that people in the 90s loved some of those classic JRPGs so much is that they were playing them was the only way you could listen to that music. You couldn't just go on the internet and find it. And I think that nowadays replaying some of those games, as you guys have discovered, can be a little bit of a challenge. And also just the genre can be a little bit more of a challenge because you don't have those same kind of advantages you did that back then of not being able to like use the technology back then couldn't actually support some of the like combat ideas or graphical ideas. So that is kind of a metaphorical thing. And I mean, we could get into a whole conversation about whether turn-based combat is antiquated these days. But even aside from that point, just not having that kind of, this is the only way I can listen to the music. So I'm going to play this and it's going to be awesome. That being gone, I think has removed some of the appeal of some of those older games and in some ways some of that genre. That's not to say there aren't great JRPGs today, but it was a big factor in their favor back then.
One of these for me is probably shooters and first-person shooters in particular. I still play games with guns and with shooting, but I play a lot fewer of them. I never play Call of Duty anymore, and I used to play those games more. And some of that is really just down to the guns, like just the shooting, the sort of audio-visual milieu of a first-person shooter where it's just like just so much of that. And then like Call of Duty, you have this huge gun in your face all the time and you're constantly murdering people with it. And there really does come a point, or at least there came a point for me where I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like doing this. Even when I'm playing, a Far Cry or some of the shooters that I still like to play, there's just an element to those games that kind of turns me off. It's not something I can overlook anymore. I wrote a big long thing about this for Kotaku right before I left, just about my relationship with guns and with virtual guns and the ways that relationship has changed over the years. And I think that holds true. It's probably truer for me now even than it was when I wrote that, which was, 6 years ago now, so a while ago. So that's one for me is first-person shooters and third-person shooters, and especially military shooters, just not for me anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't feel like I have a genre like that I'm like, I used to like this and now I don't. And if anything, I have more genres I like now, whereas when I was younger, I was more limited to really into competitive games. I was like playing a lot of fighting games and shooters and just being like, I like competitive games and these are the genres I like. And then as I got to college and just met more people who played games and then eventually started working at the Phoenix, I was like, there's just so many other kinds of games. And it turns out I like a lot of them. And I just didn't try them before and either couldn't afford them or just didn't have access to them and increasingly did. And that just kind of opened up my world. But also reading this question, I'm like, wow, I just don't ever want to play a game like Pokemon Red ever again. Whereas when I was a kid, I did that for a really long time. And like just those games where like you're collecting stuff and that's like the whole game. I feel like as a kid, I was pretty fascinated by that. But as an adult, I'm like, I need a little bit more than that.
As a kid, collecting can be its own reward.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it is. And I also liked collecting rocks and coins and like other things as a kid. And it's not to say there aren't many adults I know who still really love collecting stuff. And I'll enjoy looking at people's impressive collections. But that was just something that kind of wore off for me. And now I really don't collect anything anymore. And I really am more minimalist in my style and don't hold on to much of anything. And if anything, I'm more likely to throw something away and wish I hadn't done that. But in a game, even, I'm like, why am I collecting this? And I struggle with games that are about collecting stuff.
I have another one actually, and that's just games with like MMO style, huge checklists.
Yeah.
I think something that has pushed me away from Destiny every time I've tried to go back to it since stopping playing that game has been that part of it specifically. It's not even actually the first person shooting. I like shooting things in Destiny. It's maybe because it's aliens.
Yeah, it doesn't really sound anything
sounds.
like the guns in real life. It sounds like
not quite as militaristic.
Pew! And like and that,
Right. I think it is partly the sound effects, but yeah, I think every time I go back to that game, and I've been thinking about it again because the final shape is coming out, and it'd be kind of fun to just, I don't know, it's this big last hurrah. They're doing all this wild stuff.
It sounds cool.
Right. It sounds cool. And then I just am almost certain I'm going to have this experience that I have described many times on the show, but which is you go back to the game, you play a little bit, you're like, oh yeah, Destiny is pretty fun to jump around. And then you beat the first couple story missions, and then you have to go talk to some guy, and he's like, okay, here's this thing. You have to charge it up by going to 17 different places and killing this many enemies.
Vendors and turn in these 3 different kinds of items.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, right. I don't want to do this. And then I just stopped playing. So I have kind of just almost entirely lost my capacity to play games like that.
But I feel like we're all going to try it. The problem is that the final shape comes out like just as we're all going to LA, so like we're not even going to have time to really jump into it.
I'll jump in a little later, maybe, if people say it's good.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
I mean, then the Elden Ring DLC hits, so it's going to be hard.
Well, Kirk, we're going to see our old Destiny buddies in LA, so we can talk about whether we're all going to revisit it.
Are they going to all convince you to start getting back into it?
That's the big question. That's the big question. All right, one last question we got time for. This is from Eric. Eric says, hi, everyone. I recently started watching Yellow Jackets, and by the time you read this, I will have season 2 completed. Everyone was really excited about season 1, and it was brought up multiple times. We did a Beans cast for it. Maddy even listed it as her best TV show of 2022, but there hasn't been any talk of season 2. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, unfortunately, Kirk and I just both readjusting in our chairs. Like, well,
there's a reason for that, Eric.
Didn't turn out so good. Season 2 is mega weird and not good.
Yeah,
is the reason, and it's not good in a way that's not very fun to talk about. Like, it meanders. They make some really weird. They slow down a lot of the story. I was going to say they make weird storytelling decisions, but I don't know if I stand by that. I think some of the storytelling decisions are fine. They're just really slow and kind of told in a weird order. It kind of feels almost like every person working on it doesn't care anymore, which I think is a weird thing to say, maybe because I don't know any of these people personally, but it just is kind of how it felt. Like something was missing in season 2. Yeah. Very but sad. Kirk, did you watch it? You did, right?
Yeah, I did. We watched it with a friend of ours. We were really jazzed to start it, and then wound up just kind of pushing through it because she'd come over, we'd hang out and put it on, and we'd be like, well, let's find out what happened.
Well, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a bummer to do an episode or a Beanscast or something on it, just because it would have been a lot of nitpicking or saying, wait, why did this happen? I didn't understand. Because there's a lot of that, especially toward the end of the season. They get all the adult characters together. And then, man, in the last couple episodes, there are just these sequences where stuff happens, people die, just out of nowhere. I mean, it's very all over the place. Elijah Wood turns up and is fantastic, and it's very fun.
Good. Like, he's really good in it.
He has this musical number. I mean, there's stuff in it that is really lovely.
Weird,
it's all kind of scattered, but I thought that was pretty fun. But totally agree that the feel, like the energy of the show is just completely different from season 1. Season 1 just was like a punch to the face. I mean, the whole season just it landed, and then you just couldn't ignore it all the way through to the end, and all you wanted to do was talk about it. Season 2, it just felt like everyone had arrived, like bam, we arrived in season 1, and then everyone just looked around and said, okay,
now
what are we doing here? And there are just so many questions that I still have about particularly the past like 90s storyline where they've crashed in the woods. Like, what is going on there? And where are they going to go with this for, I think, 3 more seasons is the plan, because they just didn't really tease out anything new. It didn't go the Lost route of introducing way too much stuff, but as a result, they kind of didn't introduce anything. And I feel like, I actually think they rushed through some of the storylines too. The whole cannibalism storyline, it's moving faster almost than I wanted it to. But then, you're right that sometimes it feels slow. Like the pacing is just very strange. It was really messy. I don't really know what happened behind the scenes with the writing, with the production of it, but it is very all over the place.
It felt like something had happened that we don't know about.
It did.
Yeah.
So just pretty disappointing.
What happened was Ella Purnell went has the touch of gold.
I know.
When she went to a new show, that became awesome. And
I also think the strike happened too for the actors, and then that's going to affect whether the show can continue, because all those younger actors are getting older in the intervening years, and I think that affected their ability to do.
Wait, the strike was after the show aired, or was like
yeah, but like, isn't that going to affect how they're able to do?
Oh, you're talking. Oh, I thought you were saying it impacted this season.
Like, because
No, it
they
didn't
keep
impact.
getting older. So even at the time, I was like, is this show just going to get canceled? Like, how could they do this?
Yeah, based on the reactions, it felt like season 1 was so buzzy, no
Yeah.
pun intended, and then season 2 nobody really talked about. So I don't know if they're really going to stick with 5 seasons. But I guess
Yeah.
we'll see. Yeah, I didn't even watch it. And
I think
loved the
because
first
we both
season,
told you that you didn't
Yeah.
need to.
You're fine.
Yeah,
You're
pretty
fine.
much.
You're good.
Yeah, pretty much. And also, like, I like Paramount Plus. Like, you have to get a whole new streaming thing for it.
Oh, right,
so it's
right,
kind of
right.
like,
Because now it's on
Yeah, I
Paramount.
kind of a
understand
pain
that.
to watch also. So
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. I can't think of many shows where like they've had such a good first
I know.
season, and then maybe Westworld is another one where it's
Yep.
like an amazing first season and then total
Very
drop-off.
similar.
Very,
actually,
very
yeah.
similar. And I mean, I the Lost comparison, even though it's kind of opposite, I remember feeling similarly about where like the first couple seasons I was like so high on it, and then I just got so tired of what
Yeah,
was
I mean
going
that show
on.
has a lot of ups and downs. I would say
It has its own issues, but it is similar in the sense, I guess, because all 3 of the shows that we're talking about, Yellow Jackets, Westworld, and Lost, are all kind of mystery box type shows, and
Yeah.
really just shows how difficult it is to continue to have week to week tension, and unraveling a mystery in that way is just really difficult.
Veronica Mars, another one
Yeah.
with an immaculate first season, and I
Yep.
would say a pretty flawed second season. It
Yep.
happens. The sophomore slump is a thing. This was a major sophomore slump, I would say.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, Veronica Mars, another mystery box where
Yep.
the mystery in the first season
Is
was perfect,
self-contained.
and
Yeah,
then
the
in the
mystery was
second
the
season
problem.
kind of a little messier. Although I wouldn't say the second season is bad of Veronica Mars. By
I
any
know
means.
you're a season 2 apologist.
I am. It's not that I think it's great or like tight or anything
yeah.
like that. I just enjoyed watching it as opposed to season 3, which is really just putrid of Veronica Mars.
Yeah, I've still never watched it.
Yeah. Oh, you've never watched season 3?
Wow.
Oh,
Because I don't care. I watched the new season. I watched the movie. That was fine. I don't need to
Okay.
watch all that stuff
Fair
with
enough.
Piz or whatever.
Yeah, she's in college. It's
I watched
she
it all
has this-
recently.
Oh my
I
god,
talked
Kirk!
about it
She
on the
is like
show.
the worst boyfriend ever. Who's just like
I
the
know
worst
all
character
about
this
him.
guy is. Anyway,
Yeah, I know.
all right, let's take a break. Unless you two have more to say, do I need to say this every
So
time?
much more.
No,
So
no,
much
we're
more.
all-
Why are you
we're all
cutting us
worried about
off? How dare you?
We're gonna take a break and then we'll be back for one more thing.
The Greatest Generation has been going on for more than 8 years.
And if you've been Greatest Gen curious but have never taken the leap, we recommend exploring your Greatest Gen curiosity in a safe, fun environment with partners you can trust. But right now is one of the best times ever to become a new listener.
That's because we just started covering a new Star Trek series, Star Trek Enterprise, one of the horniest and weirdest editions of Star Trek ever released.
This is your chance to ease in to the Greatest Generation lifestyle.
The Greatest Generation, now covering Star Trek Enterprise, the one with Scott Bakula, every Monday on MaximumFun.org or in your podcast app.
Hey, Sydney, you're a physician and the co-host of Sawbones, a marital tour of misguided medicine, right?
That's true, Justin.
Is it true that our medical history podcast is just as good as a visit to your primary care physician?
No, Justin, that is absolutely not true. However, our podcast is funny and interesting and a great way to learn about the medical misdeeds of the past as well as some current, not so legit healthcare fads.
So you're saying that by listening to our podcast, people will feel better?
Sure.
And isn't that the same reason that you go to the doctor?
Well, you could say that, but
And our podcast is free?
yes, it is free.
You heard it here first, folks. Sawbones, marital tour of misguided medicine right here on Maximum Fun, just as good as going to the doctor.
No. Still not just as good as going to the doctor, but pretty good.
It's up there.
And we are back for one more thing, Maddy. The tradition of old FromSoft games
It's not even
continues.
that old. Okay, so I put Elden Ring as my one more thing. I was a little scared to get back into Elden Ring. So just to give the backstory for the listeners who I'm sure are in a similar boat if they care about Shadow of the Erdtree. I mean, Shadow of the Erdtree is set in the middle of Elden Ring.
This is, of course, the new DLC that comes
that is
out
upcoming in a few weeks. And it's set in the middle of the game, which is annoying and is a thing that FromSoft typically does. And in my case, what I did with Elden Ring, the very first time I played it, was I played it all the way to the end. I spent hundreds of hours in it, just exploring it top to bottom. I got past the final boss, and then I went to the round table hold, which is sort of like this resting area for your character. And then if you sit down at the round table hold, it will kick over to New Game Plus. And I apparently never did that. I just stood there and then I closed my game and then I didn't open it for however long it's been since Elden Ring came out. And then when I rebooted up my game, I was like, oh, great. I never kicked it over to New Game Plus. So I have this like really high level character. I can easily go to where the new DLC is going to start. No problem. I can just start it right away and I have all my high level gear. Let me just like try walking around and see what I can do. And I didn't remember anything. I didn't remember how anything worked. I looked at my item names. I was like, I don't know what any of these are. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what a spirit ash is. I don't remember who people are. So I just started it over. I started a new character. And so since then, I've played for like 20 hours and I beat Margit. I'm like in Stormvale. I'm like fully back in. I have a intelligence build now. So I have magic now. So it's like a totally different build. And I'm just loving it. I'm really loving Elden Ring. And I think it's
good video game.
It's a good video game. Turns out. And also I got over my anxiety because initially I was scared to get back into it. One, because I was like, what if I go back and I don't know how to play? And then I did go back and I didn't know how to play. So I was like, my anxiety has been realized. I don't know how to play. Is
it your new character, a New Game Plus?
My new
or
character?
It's a brand
no,
new?
It's brand new character. I just started over fully because I was like, if I go over to New Game Plus, I'm still going to have all my old gear and the game is going to expect me to know how to use it. And I I didn't remember what the fingers did. Like, there's so much stuff in that game that I was just like, I need Melina to sit me by the side of grace and explain it to me again. I need to meet Ronnie again. I don't know what's going on. And it's really helped me. So if anybody else is in the same boat, I recommend doing that. I'm not sure if my new game, if I'm going to get all the way to where I need to be, but starting it over completely with a new character did really help me remember all the weird terminology in the game. So I'm probably going to continue playing it for a bit.
Okay, I have another question. Do you know if I were to do like my current build, if I were to join the DLC on like my what I think many of us are in, where we have a character that's beaten the game and has just been sitting around.
But
if I were to start the DLC
for
that, no, not in DLC.
Okay,
I'm
great.
saying so you activate the DLC, which is like behind where Moog was.
That's
right.
right.
Like that's where. So if I do that, would I be super overpowered since I've already beaten the game with this character? Like, is it DLC designed for mid-game characters as opposed to end-game characters?
I'm not sure if that is definitively known.
We don't know. Okay.
We don't know.
Okay.
But
All
given that it's FromSoft, it's probably going to scale to your level in some way, I would guess. That's usually what they do for other FromSoft games.
For the DLC
it?
and other
Yeah.
FromSoft
For the DLC?
games? No, it's not.
Really?
Usually
No?
there's just a level. Yeah. Miyazaki said something about leveling that led some people to believe that there may be a whole separate weapons and like power system similar to how Sekiro works. If you remember, Sekiro doesn't have levels. You just power up your attacks at certain kind of gated moments, so you can never actually become super overpowered in Sekiro. I don't remember the exact quote, but I believe some people had drawn the conclusion that this DLC is going to have its own power scaling system that's more similar to that, where you start out, everyone just kind of starts out at the same level regardless of where they are.
That would make
sense. That would be
sense.
cool. They haven't really done that before. In the past, if you go in New Game Plus into DLC, like in Bloodborne, for example, where I played the old Hunters, that's the DLC I'm most familiar with. If I went into that in New Game Plus and was getting rocked because they were New Game Plus level enemies, and I wound up playing it again way later on a new save in just NG, and that worked better. Bing! Kirk here as I am editing the episode. I was kind of going off the dome when we recorded this, and I know this is something that people are actually wondering about, and there's not a ton of extremely accurate information about it. First, just to distance myself from myself, I'm actually not 100% sure that From has approached leveling the same in all of their DLC, because I haven't played all of their DLC, even though I just said that. It could well be different in some of their games that I haven't played. So I just wanted to qualify that. Second, the quote that I am talking about comes from a Famitsu interview with Miyazaki. It's been translated a few places, and it's got him saying basically that there will be a level up system in the game that people will understand as being akin to attack power in Sekiro, and that it's separate from the existing levels and is only effective within the DLC area. No idea what exactly that means. I think we'll just have to wait for coverage of the DLC to come out, but I just wanted to give the full translated quote. Okay, back to the show. Bing! I would say, to offer a secondary suggestion to this. If you're playing on PC, you could do what I did and back up all of your saves. I have a backed up save at various points near the end of the game, and one, where I'm sitting right in the round table hold.
Yep.
Then you could just back up that save and save it, then go start New Game Plus, which will give you a kind of easier on-ramp to just have a whole bunch of stuff and a bunch of abilities and kind of rock your way through the first few hours of the game a lot faster and remember how everything works. I found New Game Plus to be a good way to remember the story or to catch more story moments because I just wasn't as focused on the minute-to-minute of just surviving because I was so low level.
Yeah.
And then you can always just copy your old save back over, your save slot and then go into the DLC at NG instead of New Game Plus. But, if you have a PC and you can back up your save, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it.
Mm-hmm. It depends on how overwhelmed you are and by which things. Like if you're me and you're like, I just want to start over.
That's true. I mean, you can always just ignore the stuff in your inventory. Right?
Yeah, it sounded like it wasn't an easy on-ramp for Maddy
well,
because there
only
was so
because
much
there's
going
so many
on.
proper nouns.
That's
I
what I'm
don't know.
saying. Yeah.
It depends
Which I
on what
totally,
you find easy.
I totally relate to that, Maddie. No, I totally.
No,
relate
I
to
offer
that
it as
too.
an alternative suggestion, but not as a better one.
Seven Death Hamilton over here has his own.
I think
No
they're
way.
both-
I'm terrible at Elden Ring.
Kirk, what's your one more thing?
My one more thing is a movie that I watched from 1994 as my friend Sam and I have continued our 1994 Oscars rewatch.
Nice.
We watch every movie that was nominated for an Academy Award that year. We're near the end. There's a few that we're never going to watch, like Wyatt Earp. No, man, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to watch a 3-hour Kevin Costner movie about Wyatt Earp. Never seen it, never going to. But one that we did watch is Tim Burton's Ed Wood, which is a fantastic movie that I just wanted to
always meant to
recommend
see
to
this.
anybody.
I wanna
Maddie,
watch
you would
it.
love it. Jason, you would love it. It is an amazing movie. It's maybe my favorite Tim Burton movie, which is a wild thing to say, but it's not like anything else he ever made. And I don't know. I know that this movie is, I wouldn't say a cult classic, but a just widely appreciated film.
Yeah.
And I guess I knew that going in, but I didn't go in with many preconceptions. I knew it was black and white. I knew that it had underperformed, and I knew that Ed Wood was a real guy.
Yep.
Ed Wood was the director of Plan 9 from Outer Space and a number of other legendarily terrible films
B
in the
movies.
50s and
Yeah.
60s. Yeah. Even like lower than B movies, really.
Yeah,
like
C
they weren't
movies, D
even in
movies.
the technical definition of a B movie, like the B side or whatever. These were movies that were like stock footage cut together with like unbelievable first takes where someone like hits a door on their way out of a scene and he just keeps it. So this is a biopic, really, about him. And then there are a bunch of real-life characters depicted in it, most notably Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula, is played by Martin Landau, who won Best Supporting Actor this year for it, and is absolutely incredible. Like 5 minutes into the movie, we're like, oh, okay, this is why this guy beat Samuel L. Jackson and all these other actors that we've been watching, because he is unbelievably great. So Ed Wood is a really interesting person, a really interesting character. He's played by Johnny Depp in the film, which I understand could be a problem for some people. Like, it's different watching Johnny Depp now than maybe it was in 1994. It is a fantastic performance by him. It's kind of an interesting period in his career. It's kind of pre-Pirates of the Caribbean, but he's doing that kind of really caffeinated, really like positive, like take on this character, and it's just a great performance of a guy I didn't know very much about. A ton of other people are in it, though. Sarah Jessica Parker is fantastic. A whole bunch
I
of
didn't know
character
she was in
actors
it.
and comedians.
That's
She's
wild.
really good. She plays his kind of first girlfriend. Anyways, I can't say enough good about it. It's so fun to watch. It's such a wonderful mix of like these cheap practical effects with real kind of Tim Burton miniature stop motion, all like you can see all his love of those techniques come out in the movie because, if you've watched Beetlejuice or you've watched whatever, any of his other kind of Edward Scissorhands, his other early movies, he loves miniatures. He loves those little tangible, practical effects and sets. And there's a lot of that in this movie. And it's a big ode to filmmaking and to kind of weirdos who form a little creative family together and over time just kind of learn to love and live with one another. Bill Murray is in it playing a real character who is just absolutely wonderful. It's really fun to see him in this supporting role, doing some real acting, kind of playing a character. He has some of the funniest moments in the film, but in a just really wonderful way. I really can't recommend it enough. This is a movie that kind of like Heavenly Creatures, I just didn't really know much about, had never seen, and then we loved the entire thing. So huge recommendation for Ed Wood, which is pretty easy to find streaming. You might have to rent it, but it's worth the $4 or whatever that costs.
I'm going to
Very
do it.
cool.
I'm going to finally
All
watch
right.
it.
You'll like it.
My one more thing is Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, the new remake on the Nintendo
Yeah,
Switch.
I've got this installed. Haven't played it. Want to know what you think of it?
Kirk, Maddy, this game still rules 20 years
Yeah,
later.
that's what I hear.
So this game, okay, man. So quick backstory. We all played Super Mario RPG. That was kind of the Squaresoft or Square at the time, Squaresoft at the time, and Nintendo collaboration. Then they parted ways for various reasons, and Nintendo wound up doing their own kind of series of Mario RPGs called Paper Mario. That was on the console, and then they had the Mario and Luigi games, which are on the handhelds. So on the console, you had Paper Mario, which was really cool. That was on 64 and 64, and then Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, which like blew things out and was way, way better, and blew people away when it came out for the GameCube in 2004 or whatever it was. And it still holds up extremely well today, in large part because the writing is just fantastic as it was back then. This was like the treehouse on top of their game, like really mastering just the way that people talk in this silly, ridiculous, absurd Mario universe where just everyone is hilarious and the characters are all just truly preposterous. If I have one complaint, it's got that old school Nintendo style of over tutorializing everything, where there's a new tutorial every single time you get a new ability and just endless text telling you how to use it. But it's just so much fun that it's really hard to not recommend that you both play this game. It's a blast. It is so much fun. You play as Mario, of course. It's turn-based combat with button timing. You guys are very familiar with that. You get a host of different kind of characters who can join you, and then you can cycle between them as like your partners, and I think they're all, or most of them are based on classic Mario enemies. So there's like a Koopa Troopa, there's a Goombarella who joins you. And they all have both abilities in combat and also abilities outside of combat that you use to solve puzzles and get through platforming challenges and stuff like that. And then there's this hilarious concept where every time you find these chests, and inside the chests you hear this disembodied voice who is like, "Please save me. I will reward you beyond your like dreams, yada yada yada." And then you finally find a way to unlock it, and he's like, "Ha ha ha! I tricked you. Now I'm gonna curse you." But the curse is actually giving you like a powerful new ability, so it's like now you can turn into a paper airplane and use that to navigate these areas. And so you find yourself just being like, hell yeah, he's cursed me again. And yeah, it's just great. It's just a great RPG. You're going around these super wild, colorful characters and towns, and there are interludes in between each Mario chapter where you get to play as Peach for a while, which is also hilarious and very fun. Yeah, just a great game. Has aged extremely well. And if this is one of the Switch's final games, it's a good one. It's a good one to say goodbye. Start saying goodbye to the Switch to as we prepare ourselves for the Switch's inevitable successor next year.
Nice.
Heck yeah.
I'll definitely play it.
Yeah,
yeah,
me too.
You guys will both really like it, and maybe we can talk about it a little more in depth if you guys both wind up getting really into it over the summer. All right, on that note, it is time to say goodbye. Kirk,
it is.
Maddy, I will see you both soon for our Triple Cook bonus episode, which will air pretty soon for subscribers. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun. a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.